Back with us on the Sports Mag Zone. The gang of four that pleaded guilty to assaulting Grenada's World Javelin Champion Anderson Peters on board the Harbour Master party boat on August 10 were each fined 5,500 EC dollars by Chief Magistrate Teddy St. Louis in court on Wednesday. The four men, 35-year-old Mikhail John, 55-year-old John Alexander, 28-year-old Shion Jackson, and the boat captain, 42-year-old Noel Cooper, must pay immediately the sum of 3,500 EC dollars on the charge of causing grievous harm with violence. Failure to do so will result in a 1-year prison sentence. The remainder, 2,000 EC dollars on the charge of causing harm with violence, must also be paid forthwith. Failure to pay that will result in a prison sentence of 6 months, so all told 18 months in total if the fines are not paid. Joining us to discuss the sentencing is Grenadian lawyer and former national 400-meter runner Ewart Lane. Good afternoon, Ewart. Welcome to the Sports Mag Zone.
Good afternoon, George. Great for having me. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, Lance and Mariah.
Hi.
Good afternoon. Good to have you here. All right, so Chief Magistrate St. Louis has done his job. Were you in court for the sentencing? I'm keen to hear if his lordship had anything to say to the convicts before passing sentence.
Unfortunately, I had an emergency yesterday, so I was not able to be in court, but I have spoken to lawyers who were in court.
And what did they say was said by his lordship?
Well, of course, he analyzed the incident. He condemned the incident, of course, but he, as a judicial officer, had to do a balancing act, and he applied a sentence which I think in all the circumstances was an appropriate sentence.
Yeah, on that point, because there's a famous saying. I'm trying to run through my mental Rolodex to see who would have said it. May have been Cicero, the Roman philosopher, who said that law applied to its full extent is not justice. So I too was hoping that there would be some lenience, notwithstanding what we saw, and it looks as if the Chief Magistrate obliged by not quite middle ground, but not throwing the book at them as the law prescribes in Grenada for charges of the kind that the four men were facing.
The maximum sentence on the most serious offense was 5 years, and they pleaded guilty. And under our sentencing guideline, a guilty plea at the first occasion attracts an automatic discount of 1/3. Then the gravity of the incident was taken into consideration. Yes, it involved Anderson Peters, so it went viral. But as the magistrate said, that these are not unusual beating of men. When you have no beating of a person is good, but it is not an extreme. But I think the aggravated factor was the throwing of him in the sea, but it appears that that was not one of the factors taken into consideration in doing the sentencing. How sentences are done on the basis of a guilty plea, you do one of two things. The prosecution and the defense can agree on the facts, and they agree that they will sentence on those facts. Alternatively, if there is a serious dispute of fact, the magistrate can have a hearing, which is referred to as a neutral hearing, to determine the facts upon which he will sentence. Of course, I think all parties wanted to get over this thing as quickly as possible, so there have been some negotiations, some give and take in terms of the accepted facts, because all the things you heard in the media about Anderson spitting on people and coughing people, there was nothing so apparent before the court.
Counsel, was there any value, and when I say value, did the court, did the Chief Magistrate consider any at all the apologia published on Mr. Cooper's behalf, explaining what happened and trying to justify why they acted the way in which they did?
Well, interestingly, my information is that the captain actually denied that he was the author of that statement, and I think that was sensible on his part, because in sentencing, one of the factors you take into consideration is whether there is any show of remorse. And that apology, as you call it in my view, correctly so, basically sought to justify what happened, rather than to show any remorse with regard to what happened. So I think it was sensible that that line of argument was never taken.
Yeah, and earlier in the week we had another show, and George brought up the point about, pleading guilty to, of course, lessen the punishment. Do you get the sense that that was the approach taken?
Of course it was, because as I said, a guilty plea attracts an automatic one-third discount. I think also that clearly the convicted people are well represented. The lawyers, I think, did a very skillful work in terms of negotiating on their behalf and really having things worked out so that they receive that non-custodial sentence. But a fine and a custodial sentence in default, but I understand the fines have already been paid, and they are free persons.
Right, and
but I think unfortunate in all of this here is that Anderson Peter's side of the story has not as yet been revealed, which I think is a bit unfortunate, because in the absence of anything coming from him, all we had was the statement from the captain, and other people putting on statements saying that Peters apparently he wanted special treatment, he wanted to stay on the boat, or he spit on the captain, he coughed the captain, and so. And that is absolutely out of character with Peters. I don't believe it. Peters has said to me directly that that is not true. It is totally out of character with Peters. And I want to make the point that the day before this incident, the Prime Minister of the country, in holding an event for Peters, was making the point that the first time he met Peters, he was just taken aback by the humility of the man. He said that if no one knew Peters, no way could you have recognized that was a world champion. And I want to make this point. Peter spent 3 hours on that boat. 3 hours. And it is clear, and I believe that the persons who were involved in beating him, they did not know who he was. Now, in my view, that says everything about the man. Yeah. He just went there as an ordinary person, ordinary 24-year-old, clearly talented in throwing that javelin, but not someone who was seeking any preferential treatment or seeking to show off. Yeah. He was just humble, and I think what happened in the circumstances, and I think the magistrate alluded to that, there were commercial pressures, because the business model of this boat is to run back-to-back cruises. So one cruise came in, and there were other people there waiting, and obviously the crew was under pressure to get people off the boat as quickly as possible. Now, in that context, if they perceived that someone was delayed, the way of dealing with it was to become aggressive. And clearly in that context, when they became aggressive with Peters, they didn't know who he was, and things got out of hand with him. Yeah. And all that happened on the video that we saw in the video took place. Yeah. I think it's important, because Peters is just not that kind of person.
Yeah. Mr. Lane, I'm keen to find out from you about the average Grenadian in the street, how they feel about the punishment. It equates to US $2,000 approximately in fines. What is the average man on the street saying, man or woman, of course, reacting to this punishment?
Well, I think that there are some people who are upset, but mostly I think people understand, and the magistrate tried to explain that this is the criminal side of the matter, and the maximum fine was $5,000 for the most serious offense, and the magistrate gave a fine of $3,500. You still have the civil side to come in, which will be the private law side, where Peters will be going up against the boat and its owners. And in civil matters, the awards tend to be much, much more than the fines in criminal matters, because the fine in the criminal matter, that goes to the state. It is not meant to in any way compensate Peters for what he may have suffered. And obviously, we are all very concerned that what he suffered could impact on his career. Yeah. I'm not sure yet, but there's great concern about it. I can tell you that he attempted to train yesterday, and he was experiencing pain. So we're really not sure what will happen in the future.
Counsel, I'm happy you spoke about the civil issue, because we're almost out of time, but I had to ask that, so I'm happy you raised it. So is it that these civil proceedings have already been initiated by attorneys on, of course, Mr. Peters' instruction, or is it that he's contemplating going in that direction? What's the story?
The civil proceedings were filed last week, Friday, and as part of those proceedings, a warrant to arrest the boat, because in Admiralty law, a boat is treated as a person. A warrant to arrest the boat was secured, so the boat is currently under arrest. I think they are seeking to see if they can obtain bail for the boat, which will then allow it to go, but they'll have to post a money bond, a cash bond.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Counsel. Really, really appreciate your time today, and we'll keep abreast of the story, especially as those civil proceedings are to be played out in court in the next few weeks, we hope. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent.
All right, well, still to come on the Sports Mag Zone, the best action from day 2 of the York Ebo Horse Racing Festival, including the feature race, the Darley Yorkshire Oaks. And next, we are talking squash. 2 of the region's best will join us ahead of the Caribbean Championships, which start on Sunday in Kingston.